Welcome to Well Traveled Life with Jonathan and Jennifer. We went bear watching.
Yeah.
That included a seaplane or float plane ride that just blew my mind. That was probably one of the most exciting days we've had anywhere.
Yeah.
Seeing coastal brown bears up close with a really talented guide, two guides. There were pilots, but also new brown bears, and that was just
That taught us
really
so much about bear behavior and body language. That was in Homer, Alaska, and we actually took a float plane out of there, and it was with Alaska Ultimate Safaris. And Kirsten and Eric are a husband-wife team that are running that company. And they've got helicopters and a seaplane, and they are absolutely amazing. And
they're both pilots.
both
very
both guides.
knowledgeable. Christine in particular was a photographer, so we enjoyed kind of sharing that because I was taking a lot of photographs as
both darling. Just fun people.
Yeah.
Like, though, again, I would say Kirsten and Eric come away as friends.
Yeah.
Those are people I hope we stay in touch with and would love to have them come to Texas, or next time we're here. I can't imagine coming and not seeing them. Worth the splurge. I would do that all over again.
And I think that's an important point.
Yeah.
That we wanted to make is that, when you're doing these, and particularly this one because it was longer, it is, I don't want to say once in a lifetime because I hope we do it more often, but it's worth splurging and spending some money to have the experience you're looking for.
Yeah. And whether it's private.
When you spend, 6 to 7 hours out there with a very experienced guide, you have time to get out to locations that may be a little more remote.
I really think that's true.
That was fabulous.
So we're going to take you to the Katmai Peninsula, where there are bears aplenty. But first, I just want to put a little disclaimer. There is some graphic material in this video because we are watching bears in the wild in their natural habitat doing what they do, and sometimes that is eating. Let's get there, because that's part of the fun of this trip. That seaplane ride is really something special, and we want you to meet our guides. If you're coming by cruise ship, you will likely be going into Homer Spit, but this is a tender port, so your tender will take you to a dock right on the Spit. The Spit is a slice of land that actually has quite a few shops and restaurants and good places and things to do right there. But it isn't Homer itself. You will need to drive into town to get to Homer. We had booked privately with Alaska Ultimate Safaris, and they had a driver waiting at the port to pick us up. You should probably allow at least 15 minutes to get from the port into their office in Homer. And that's going to become important because this is a long day excursion. And if you don't have a long day in port, you might be cutting that time really close. Our driver was terrific, and it was great to have a little bit of time to get some background about Homer Spit and Homer.
So this is the Homer Spit, and it continues that way. It does completely shut down in the winter. So we usually get winter storms that will actually cover the road. You'll see a lot of stuff like on the road. There's a couple businesses that try to stay open for locals, but it's intermittent around the weather. But it's kind of two towns. I mean, a lot of things are on the Spit that we really like, but we have an entire old town in town.
And that's open most of that year round, or?
Yes, the actual Homer itself, which is basically everything you see in front, all the cliffs up here, it's all open year round. We're the old fishing village, the halibut fishing capital of the world. Most commercial salmon from Bristol Bay comes through Homer. You're familiar with shows like Wicked Tuna and Getting All the Big Giant Crab, all those are from here. So all the huge king crab comes through Homer.
Our bear safari was going to take the whole day, but there's a lot to do in Homer and on the Spit.
Fish and chips you can probably get down at the boardwalk and take back on you if there's time. So there's a place right there, the best in town, is called Boardwalk Fish and Chip. And they serve it in a little boat on a stick, and it is the best fish and chips. And we do have lots of eagles out this morning, so there's one on top of the crane. But as we get further in, there will be eagles everywhere. So the summer population is somewhere around 12,000. The year-round population is around 5,000. It's for a large area. That's not just Homer. 35 miles at the head of the bay. generator or solar power.
Wow.
They actually own a lot of our businesses here, so we have a couple of bakeries that are Russian-owned.
Due to both its proximity to Russia as well as its history with Russia, you can feel that influence across the state of Alaska.
You know, big families, they actually are really good for the community. Big farmers, so they're always at the farmers markets. But there's a couple of little villages if you head north on the Kenai Peninsula that are all Russian. You're about to see, this is our lupin blooms. Flowers, they'll get more intense. This walkway was put in a long time ago and it goes the entire length of the spit, which is 4.3 miles.
Just off the spit lies Beluga Lake. That is where Eric and Kirsten have their main office and dock their seaplane and helicopter. And that's where we will begin the next part of our adventure. There is an outhouse at the office area, but you're out in the wild for the rest of your trip, so you kind of want to take care of business before you go. We changed into rubber hip-high waders. Eric gave us a safety briefing and set expectations for us.
Now, we like to go a place where there might be more than one bear. Now, with that being said, I don't know how many bears are going to be or how close we're going to get. That's usually the most famous two questions throughout the entire day. That's just natural.
But we were hoping for lots.
The place we're going to today, I think, is going to be about an hour, 20 minutes, no matter what we do, depending on the wind. One particular place has a dead whale, which is pretty unusual for the coast. We haven't seen a dead whale in a place we can get access to at the same time for about 5 years.
Wow.
And so it's a pretty rare event. We might head there depending on the bear situation. Sometimes, like past couple of times we've been there, there's been one grumpy bear and he's taken the whole whale for himself. And every time a new bear tries to come in, he just like ferociously protects this whale for himself. And then most bears are just like, and then they move off and they leave. So there's like one sleeping bear on the whale. Now the entertainment value of a sleeping bear is exactly 5 minutes. We never know what's going to happen. That's why I always say we never know how close we're going to get. It's an entertainment type value for us because it's something we can see into the lives of bears and how they work. Now I want to tell you guys, bears are not dangerous. They have the potential to be dangerous, but they're not dangerous. They're afraid of everything. And the main thing they're afraid of is other bears. Other bears eat other bears. And so they're always thinking in the back of their minds, what is that bear going to eat me? Is he bigger than me? Is he stronger than me? And so what they try and do is they develop a social stratus. So this socialness is, of course, the bigger the bear, more dominant. But they all try to stay away from each other as best they can. They still supply the same food source or go to the same food source. But we can enter into the same thing. So I want you to be sure that you guys have in your minds, even though you might be apprehensive right now, be rest assured that you're going to come home today. They do not see us as a threat. They don't see us as competition for food or for mating. We occupy a space. And our space is our space. Their space is their space. The neat thing about this is they can see us a long way. So they can come toward us if they want, or they can leave when we want. The hardest thing that I have to do today, or that we have to do, is to hide our aggression. You wouldn't think you're very aggressive as people just wandering around, but you are in the natural kingdom. Other animals look at you and go, whoa, those guys are bold. I'm going to fly away. Or I'm going to move away. And that's what bears do. They move away from us if we're too aggressive. And we'll work on that today.
Eric talked to us about behaviors like walking single file so that we looked like a family and didn't have one large imposing presence. We wanted to blend in so that they would be themselves around us. We also learned to look for submissive behaviors from bears, everything from lowering their eyes to bowing their heads to literally bowing down.
What I think we're going to do is we're going to bring, if we head down to the whale, we're going to bring our shoes because it's going to be a much easier walk. It's not wet down there right now. It hasn't rained.
Kirsten and Eric usually lead separate tours, but we were really lucky to get them together today. They're both pilots, both guides, and they were both fabulous. We had another fun couple on the trip with us who were botanists and brought so much to the table. We were in line for takeoff on Beluga Lake, which was an absolutely spectacular landing and takeoff. Essentially, we were traveling from Homer over to the Katmai Peninsula to this small area near Four Peaks where the whale had been seen. We took off over cloudy skies, but Eric was able to find a layer in there where we were able to get good views from above as well as below. And certainly as the day went on, we continued to get sunnier and sunnier skies as those clouds burned off. The entire flight took about an hour, maybe an hour and few minutes, and was really gorgeous the whole way. This is one of those things you would pay just for this flight, but there was something pretty special at the end of the flight, so it felt like we were getting a 2-for-1 deal.
Flying low under the radar, like a nighthawk stealth plane, you are hiding out in the shadows, keeping from the light of day. Nobody should ever have to live that way. Hey now, it's okay now. You don't have to hide from the world no more. Hey now, it's okay now. It's your time to soar. It's time to stand up straight and step into the light. It's time once and for all to have equal rights. Come along now. Hey now, it's okay now. You don't have to hide from the world no more. Hey now, it's okay now. You don't have to march in this lonely world. Hey now, it's okay now. It's your time to soar. Hey now, it's okay now. You don't have to hide from the world. It's your time to soar.
Eric and Kirsten knew enough to land the plane inside the inlet where it was protected, but to be really careful about not beaching it, because as tides go in and out, it's highly likely that your plane will get stuck on the beach and you won't be able to move it out into the water when you're ready to go. We changed out of our waders, put on our shoes, and began the trek across the inlet so that we could go see the bears, which were supposedly on the beach with that dead whale. We were walking through grasses and there were some trails, but I'm not sure those were people trails, bear trails, or other trails. We did see some rangers on the way, and there were some other photography tours, but we felt pretty alone in our small group. While we walked, we continued to see lots of signs of bears.
Wow, look at the teeth.
This was a beaver skeleton, but we saw lots of other things that were telltale. I'd say the hardest part of this trip was that we had a fair amount of camera equipment with us that made carrying it across the inlet area a little bit tough, but they took breaks and it was never an issue. And Eric and Kirsten used this time to help us understand the habitat that we were in and the way native and modern cultures use the plants around us.
Starches. So the native populations collect these a lot and fill. You can bust that off into little granules. You can eat that.
Oh my
Yeah, thousands of little.
Is that a clonal?
How would you do that? Tell us how you would do that.
Okay, so this is a wild celery, and when you break it off, it smells lemony, very similar to a mint. And you muddle this up. I do it with lime and Sprite, but you could also mix it with your wild blueberries and make an Alaskan mojito.
And while we were busy looking up and talking about the virtues of Alaskan mojitos, we had a visitor. After catching sight of us as we approached, the bear bowed her head, turned away,
No, it's being submissive.
and eventually walked off. Once we trekked across to the beach, we hit beautiful, calm waters, and again, lots of signs of bear. Check out the size of these footprints and the tracks that they were making. We continued to walk in our single file lines because you never know what you're going to come across. We had already learned that. We were seeing lots of different tracks. We could see parent-child tracks, little and big. We were seeing tracks in swirls, meaning that bears were circling each other in either roughhousing or fighting. And we were seeing parts of this whale that had died and washed ashore. We found cervical bones and baleen.
This is the baleen that comes down and filters out all.
But just as Eric predicted, as we walked up the beach, what we saw was a grumpy bear sleeping on the dead whale. And there were other sleeping bears in the area, but there wasn't a lot of entertainment value in that. But the grumpy bear woke up, and as he came to life, we saw lots of other action all around him. Much of what we saw appeared to be daily living for bears, everything from walking, scratching, yawning, and wandering. Some of it was stretching and a little bit of playing, but there wasn't anything that stood out as exciting at this point. It was more just a great opportunity to see how these bears were interacting with each other and how they managed the social structures between them. For the most part, they seemed completely unfazed by the human presence. They would look at us and they definitely recognized that we were there, but they did not interact with us in any way that we could see as meaningful. About the time we became accustomed to watching them scratch and sleep, they gave us a couple other surprises. While the big bear on the right slept and waited for the bear on the whale to leave for a while, he seemed unperturbed by the younger bear that was supposedly resting near him. But things changed when the bear maybe got a little too close for comfort. But dominance was pretty easily established, and that bear took off, foregoing his chance at the whale. There was still another bear that had been resting on the beach for most of the morning, and he had remained pretty still through all of this, but he was about to try his luck as well. In the meantime, the grumpy sleeping bear had come alive and had really begun to try and start feeding again on this whale. As he became a little more preoccupied, a bear came out from the grass area and appeared to be perhaps honing in on the whale. It appeared to us he was clearly testing the waters, and when he got to what he apparently thought was close enough, he took a more submissive stance and laid down. At this point, the grumpy sleepy bear really got to work. He was disemboweling this whale from the back end. This was quite a sight to see. He had actually dug a hole where he was able to crouch in there and get some leverage, and those claws were definitely at work. As he was feasting, the sleeping bear down at the shore all of a sudden sort of came to life and began lumbering up towards the whale. And the bear that had earlier chased off the other bear also sort of came around and displaced the younger bear that was trying to take up camp near the whale. They were clearly jockeying for position and lots of different dynamics at play. This was really the interesting part of watching this bear behavior. And all the time, the big grumpy bear was just continuing to eat and didn't seem to notice any of this activity around him. But clearly, everybody was moving in, trying to jockey for position at the whale. While everybody else was submissive and lying down, this guy seemed like he was willing to test the limits a little more. He was getting awfully close, but the big bear didn't seem to mind. Chase was leading right into this group of photographers. And now it looked like this wasn't just a chase, there might actually be a real standoff. But the big grumpy bear knew he couldn't leave that whale alone too long, as there were others right next to it as well. His point has been made, and he turned around and went back to his prey. But not without making sure everybody understood who was in control. And with a final look back to make sure that the challenger was leaving the area, he returned to the whale. And his challenger went off into the mountains. At this point, he had fairly chased away all the competition, and he was able to get back to work trying to devour parts of the whale. He'd moved on to the fin, which he was obviously having a hard time dislodging, but man, it was pretty awesome to see that kind of strength, bear against whale, in action. It was a warm day outside, and all of this feeding and protecting was definitely taking its toll. He was really panting, breathing heavily, and getting ready to settle down for another nap. So as we moved back to the less entertaining big grumpy sleeping bear, we started to pack up our things and walk back down the beach so that we could trek across the inlet and get back to the plane. We were all a little high from our incredible bear experience, so we were just taking this a little more casually. We stopped for some pictures, looked at some plants, and we're just walking a lot more casually on the way back. Now we could enjoy the views and this magnificent day. We'd had the most amazing bear experience. But remember, this is in the wild. Bears aren't confined to the beaches. As we came over the hill back to the inlet that we had parked the plane on, this one was waiting for us. It really didn't pay much attention to us, but we didn't want to invade its space, so we were keeping our distance, and it kept us on the trail a little longer than we might have expected because it wasn't going anywhere. Had to get back to our plane as we had a deadline, and we knew we still had that hour or more long flight to get home, plus the drive back to the Homer Spit. So we moved around this guy, but as we got to the plane, another bear was waiting for us. Once he saw us, he turned away and walked down the beach, but that was the same direction we were going. So it appeared a little bit like we might be sort of chasing him, which we weren't. We were just trying to get to our plane. He finally headed off into the grassy area, so we continued on towards our plane. But the bear didn't go very far. He got pretty comfortable just hanging out right in front of where we needed to walk. It was feeding in the grass and absolutely undeterred by our presence. It gave us a look over and gave us an even better look over, but then turned and walked away. Our encounters with the bear just kept getting better. But at this point, we'd had enough interruptions and we were starting to worry about time and getting back to the pier in time for the last tender to the ship. We changed back into the waders, scrambled back up onto the plane, allowed Eric to clean off the boots so that we didn't drag Alaska into his seaplane.
Crawl your way up. Now, if you rub your feet in the gravel underneath, I don't have to do that.
Shake it, shake it, shake it, shake it.
We look to the mountains. We don't care.
Nice job. Beautiful.
Nothing is really what it seems.
And you're good, you're good.
Now little by little, in the twilight's gentle flow, in the dance of fading light,
Even though we were running out of time, Kirsten broke out the good stuff for our ride home. She had packed bottles of champagne and goodie bags with some treats so that we had snacks on the way back. The flight was gorgeous, but this was a lot of fun. We were trying to set up cameras, celebrate, share pictures, and eat snacks all at the same time. But we got it done.
Yeah, we can walk on water while the boats are leaking. Soon the walls will be giving in. Anytime.
Eric put the plane into action and we were headed home as quickly as we can because we were showing that we were going to be within about 3 minutes of the last tender leaving the pier. So we were cutting it pretty close. And don't forget, we still had to drive from Homer down the spit to the pier.
Anytime now, another shrug of the shoulders. I guess I'll be walking home in the rain. I lost you, but then you were mine again. Just like the wind and the fire, wind and fire. We forget about everything, every truly remarkable thing. No wonder we lost. Go figure, coin toss. You say you're tired, so am I. But without you, I'm lost, so lost.
We literally touched down 6 minutes before the last tender was leaving. We ran from the plane. Kirsten jumped us into her private car and sped like a demon down to the spit. In the meantime, she was calling the Chamber of Commerce and sending text messages, letting them know to tell the cruise ship crew that we were on our way. We'd be there as quickly as we could. As we were driving out on the spit, we were lamenting the fact that we didn't have an opportunity to stop at the restaurants that looked so good. Kirsten affirmed for us that the seafood is fresh and there's lots of opportunities for really special cuisine.
There's a bunch of really nice chefs that come out here, and the food, of course, is super fresh. Okay, here's Harbor Grill.
There are multiple piers on Homer Spit, and you need to know which one your cruise tender is coming into and leaving from. And they will often be different, and they may even be different if you're on a shore excursion arranged by the ship or that you're doing independently on your own. Kirsten was phenomenal. We arrived literally in time to catch the very last tender. We were the last 2 people on the boat, but she ran down with us, got us there, made sure that we were safely on board. Could not thank her enough. Just had to have quick goodbyes.
We'd appreciate your comments below.
Yeah, love to hear from you.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.